Hi everybody and welcome to Find Your Flow. I am Natalie and today we have a Vinyasa Flow practice for beginners. So we'll be slowing down a lot of the very key postures that are used in a swifter paced Vinyasa Flow practice. We'll be breaking each posture down and building a really sturdy base to grow from so that our foundation is strong and we can progress in our yoga practice. Hop on your mat and I look forward to meeting you there. So, making sure that we have any props that we might like for our practice today. Props don't mean that we're not doing a pose right or that we're doing a lesser version of the pose. They're just there to support us and help our bodies to find a little bit more space. They lift the ground up to us and are awesome whether we're just starting our practice or if we're way ahead and advancing quite far in our practice. Props are great. Don't worry though if you don't have a yoga brick or a block per se, you can use anything that just lifts the ground up a little higher. So we can have books, water bottles, I've used dumbbells before, all sorts, whatever works for you. Cushions, pillows and towels and things like that are great in place of one of these flatter yoga blocks, which I recommend that we use when we do any seated postures. They just help to find a bit more space in the hips and add a little more length to the spine. So just pause the video now if you need to and grab anything like that. And then we'll come on down to the ground to start our practice lying on the earth. Just take your time to make your way there and we'll begin with our knees bent, the soles of our feet to the mat, and we'll walk our feet out a little bit wider towards the edges of our mat and then let our knees fall in toward one another. And this just helps to soften that lower back space down towards the ground. Then placing both of our hands, one on top of the other, on our belly. And if we would rather keep our eyes open here, I invite you just to soften the gaze slightly. And if we'd like to, we can completely close them. And we'll begin our practice by checking in with our breath and just adding a little bit more of a conscious awareness to every inhale and exhale we take. So we'll start to breathe in and out through our nose and get into this rhythm of inhaling, feeling the belly slightly inflate like a balloon. Exhale, feel the belly soften and release. Inhale through the nose, belly rises. Exhale through the nose, belly softens. And what we're doing here is using our diaphragm, which is our main breathing muscle, to assist us in our breathing. Now when we're very stressed, very much on autopilot, that's when our other breathing muscles take over, more in the upper body near the shoulders, the neck, the chest, the intercostal muscles in between the ribs. And when we use our diaphragm to breathe instead, we're really helping to achieve that greater quality of breath. And this might feel a little strange if we aren't used to breathing like this, because our diaphragm is a muscle, and just like any other muscle, it needs to be worked in order to strengthen. So just come to find a natural rhythm of your own breath here. And in some more traditional Vinyasa Flow practices, it's taught to breathe with every move you make as we add on layers of movement into our practice. But for today, we're just going to remember to breathe and keep this real soft awareness with our inhales and exhales through our nose. Finding one more full breath here. Nice. We'll start to very gently warm up through our body, wiggle fingers and toes. Lift one leg at a time up towards the sky. Keep a really soft bend in the knees. And then reaching the arms up to follow. Wiggle fingers and toes and start to add some more movement to the wrists and the ankles. Just circling them around. Really spread through each of our fingers, each of the toes. Find lots and lots of juicy movement here. We use our hands and our feet quite a lot in our yoga practice and very much throughout our day-to-day lives. So just spending this time to get a little bit of extra love to this area, just some oil into the joints, can be really nourishing and supportive for our practice. Make sure you send your circles the opposite way if you haven't. Nice. The hands release onto the knees, just soften the feet, coming towards the glutes. We'll take our knees out nice and wide, Send our knees round in a big circle, swim them back together and then open. And slowing this movement down just slightly, checking in with the hip space, keeping our lower back on the earth as we circle round here. We can hold a lot of physical and emotional tension in our hips. So just being aware of what we brought with us to the mat today. Send your circle the opposite way. And my invitation to you now and always is just to listen to your body. So one thing on one day might feel great and another day not so great. And it's all about meeting ourselves where we are. Just learning to accept things as they are without comparing ourselves or wishing anything were any different. And that's a lot of what yoga is about. And our practice of yoga. So come all the way back to center, flip the hands to the hamstrings. We'll take a rock and roll all the way up and down the length of our spine. So imagine that our spine was like the legs of a rocking horse, this curved shape. We'll hug our forehead up towards our knees, start to lift our lower back and our pelvic space off the mat, create this curly motion in the body, hug it up into a tight ball, and then find a little momentum. This rocking and rolling. Rocking and rolling. We'll do this a couple more times. Just get the feel for it, opening up through the back chain of the body. And then eventually we'll lift all the way up and jump forwards into an all fours position. And don't worry if first few times you start to roll up and then you fall straight back down. That's fine. That's part of the process. Remember, it's all a practice. We'll arrive in our tabletop and spread through our fingers, pressing down into each of our fingertips. Imagine we're trying to press the ground away from us as we lift up and out of our shoulder space, taking our attention to our shoulder blades. We'll imagine that they're pulling away from one another as we create almost a little doming effect in the upper back body. So rather than hanging out and really collapsing into the joints here, we're keeping nice and active and awake with our gaze down, the back of our neck long. Our knees are underneath our hip space. And if we want any extra padding underneath the knees from a blanket or a towel, then just take what you need. If you don't have them, we can always double up on our mat. And then really pressing into the tops of the feet again. Just like we're pressing into the hands, we're also pressing into the feet, finding a sturdy foundation in our tabletop for our practice to go from. Nice. And if this is way too much on the wrists today, in any of our weight-bearing poses on our hands, we can bring our hands onto some bricks or blocks that we might have. If we don't have anything, we can just bring our hands to fists. We're still strengthening this wrist joint, but just taking a little bit of pressure directly out of the joint itself. So keeping wrists beneath the shoulders wherever we are. We'll start to add a bit of movement to the spinal space as we curl our tailbone down to the ground. We'll lift our spine up to the sky, drop our gaze in between our legs. Angry cat, cat pose. Keeping the arms nice and long, shoulder blades spread away from one another. Keep pressing into each of the fingertips, particularly the thumb. And then let your breath lead the way and guide you as we flip the tailbone up towards the sky. Roll the tummy down towards the ground, shine our heart space forwards and slightly lift our gaze. It's very tempting in our cow pose to lift all the way up, but even if we just do that for a second, we can probably feel the compression it creates in the back of the neck and some tension that doesn't feel good. So we're wanting to elongate our neck, keep it an extension of our spine, and then move here a few more times with your own breath, just getting a feel for your cat-cow. And cat-cows really are a very foundational posture in our yoga practice. You'll come across these in probably most of your classes in a variety of sorts. We can do these seated, standing, and all fours. We can find this spinal extension and flexion in more postures like our warrior postures, lunges, all sorts. So it's really important to get that feeling for your cat and cows and this fluidity in the spine so that we can support our practice, but also to support our spine in general. A wise yogi once said, "You are only as young as your spine." And I love that. Couldn't agree more. Nice. One more time, rolling through cat, really letting each vertebra of the spine articulate. And then rolling through cow. Awesome. Float back to our neutral spine and just take a moment to sit back onto the feet. Come off the hands and just give them a little bit of love. If we're not used to being on our hands quite a lot, then this might feel like quite a lot. And in a vinyasa practice, we are on our wrists and our hands quite a lot. So this is great practice for that. And then reaching the hands forward, we'll make our way down into a child's pose, sitting the hips heavily towards the heels. Hands reach forwards, knees wide, toes come into touch. And if our forehead doesn't reach the ground in our child's pose, or our hips don't reach our heels, no worries. This is where we can use a prop of some sort to lift the ground up to us so that we can really rest here, because the child's pose is very much our resting posture in our vinyasa practice. So we're wanting to use this as a way to return back to our breath. Take a moment or two in stillness and just center ourselves. Nice. Lift all the way up and out slowly. We'll tuck our toes under and come to sit back onto our heels. Arms stay reaching forwards. We'll keep spreading through the hands, pressing into each of the fingertips, and then leading with our tailbone. Reach our tailbone super high up towards the sky, downward facing dog. Our hands are shoulders width apart, if not a bit wider, and our feet are hips width apart, if not a bit wider. So our down dog can feel super intense. There's a lot going on here. So what I invite you to do is find a little bit of movement. So wiggle through the hips, pedal through the heels. And rather than thinking about trying to get the heels down towards the ground, can we instead invite a soft bend to the knees that helps us to encourage a bit more length through our spinal space, all the way from the tip of the tailbone towards the crown of our head. And keep that tailbone tilting up towards the sky. Lovely. And then with all this going on, noticing our breath. Keeping with these lovely inhales and exhales through our nose. We'll find one more full breath here. And then super slow, we'll roll forwards, curling through our angry cat. Arms long, shoulders over the wrists, legs back behind us, heels pressing away actively, high plank. In our high plank, we're making sure that our hips aren't dropping down or lifting too high. We're keeping that long line all the way from the head to the heels. Pressing away from the ground with our palms, spreading our shoulder blades apart, finding that little knitting in of belly up toward the spine. Nice. Find one more breath here. And then lift tailbone high. Find a downward facing dog. And have a little wiggle and a pedal. If that feels good, we might want to just stay here and stick with our breath. Whatever works for you, find one more breath. And then start to slowly roll through that angry cat. Shoulders over the wrists, legs long, inner thighs hugging in toward one another. This is a full body expression in our plank pose. One more breath here. And then sending tailbone high, down dog. Nice. We'll practice this one more time. Spread through the fingers, roll forward slowly. With intention, shoulders over the wrists. Keep the heels really pressing away towards the back of our mat. And then release knees to the ground. We'll find a low plank. So mindful that the hips again aren't sagging or bending too high. We'll hug our elbows in towards us and prepare us for our chaturanga. We're looking to lower our legs and our chest down towards the ground at the same time, all on one level. So hugging elbows in towards us. We'll lower with control, all in one go. Find ourselves to the ground, nice. Taking our feet a little bit wider and pressing into the tops of the feet on the mat. Hands walk back by our rib cage. Roll the shoulders away from the ears and let this be what helps us lift our heart forward. Heart shines open into our baby cobra. And then releasing. Nice. We'll lift up again to our cobra. Shoulders roll away, heart opens. Stay here, hover the hands off the ground, mindful we aren't just pressing our palms to the earth to lift us into this. And then release. Awesome. One more time, we'll roll all the way up and back, opening our front body, strengthening our back body. Super important, this balance together of strength and flexibility. And then releasing. We'll press our way all the way up and back to a child's pose. Knees wide, toes together, arms forward, forehead softens. Take any props you might want. Return back to your breath. And from here, we'll walk our hands forward, tuck the toes under and rise to a downward facing dog. No rush to arrive here. Really think about that tailbone drawing high up towards the sky. Nice. From down dog, keep this really generous bend in the knees as the hands gently walk back towards the feet. We'll find a forward fold, taking a look down at our feet, making sure they're around hips distance apart. Toes track forwards, knees softly bend over the toes, crown of the head shines down towards the ground. Don't worry if the hands don't touch the earth. We'll hug opposite hand to opposite elbow and let our upper body sway side to side like a heavy pendulum. And I know it's very tempting in your forward fold to crick the neck up and look what I'm doing, but trust the sound of my voice here and really take any tension away from that head and neck space. Float back to center, release the arms, let them glide up to the tops of the thighs. We'll find a long line from the tip of our tailbone to the crown of our head. Gaze down, roll the shoulders away from the ears. Our arms are like little grasshopper legs in our halfway lift. Really important that we take a moment to check in and really feel comfortable in this halfway lift, because it can be very easily skipped over as a quick transitional posture. But there's lots of benefit from this. We're opening through the back of the legs. We're also strengthening here in the thighs. We're lengthening the torso. Find one more breath here. Gorgeous. Then roll all the way forwards. Hands to the ground, walk back, downward facing dog. Take your time to arrive there. Make sure that your hands and your feet are far enough away for your body. Remember, your down dog might look very different to mine, because I might be shorter or taller than you. My legs might be longer or shorter. So it all comes down to your body and how you're made. We'll find one more breath here. And then lifting that left leg off the mat behind us, come to a three-legged dog. And thinking here about bending our right knee so that we can soften our right heel down towards the ground and really have a space through this right leg to root to as we lift our left leg off the mat. Nice. Don't worry if the leg isn't super, super high. It can be here, here. Just grow your own down dog. We're just looking to make sure that our spine isn't rounding. So keep that nice bend in the right knee. And then bend the left knee. We'll hover forwards, coming towards our high plank position. And then step the left foot up into a lunge with that back knee on the ground. And don't worry if it takes a couple of steps there. You might need to give it a helping hand to get to your low lunge. From here, we'll reach our fingertips forwards, up and all the way back, lifting up and out of our front leg so we aren't collapsing here. We'll soften our shoulders and our elbows, come into cactus arms. Now in cactus arms, thinking of our shoulder blades drawing together just slightly as we keep a nice openness in our heart. In our low lunge, we are bringing our front knee over our front ankle. Keep pressing into the ball joint of this front toe to ground down through all four sides of the front foot. And then when it comes to our hips, think about drawing our left hip crease back and our right hip crease forward. So we've got this scissoring effect going on in the legs. There's lots going on right now, particularly in the lower body. So breathe here, pad underneath the back knee if we need to. Find one more breath. And then release. Hands come down towards the ground. We'll plant our right palm. It can come onto a brick or to your mat. Left hand will reach all the way up towards the sky, spiral the ribcage to the left side, and then soften through the shoulders. Stay here in our twist. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, release. Left hand comes down towards the ground. Inhale, open, find space. Exhale, soften completely. We'll do this one more time. Inhale, reach all the way up. Exhale, release. Rise back into our low lunge. Hands reach forwards, up and back. This time we'll let the hands swim behind us, trace our mat, and reach forwards again. All the way up, all the way back. Nice. One last time here. Reach forwards. Lengthen. Stay here. Cactus arms. Bend in the elbows. Take a big breath in. Exhale. Bring fingertips down to the ground. Tucking the back toes under, we'll lift that back knee and we'll transition into a warrior one. First of our warrior postures. Stepping that back foot up slightly and turning our right toes out. So if we were to look at a clock, we'd be at about 2 o'clock. We'll then press into both feet and rise up. We'll take our hands to our hips just to start while we find this foundation in the lower body. So taking a look at our feet, they're almost about as wide as our mat. Our front knee is bent over our front ankle. Our back leg is long like a ski slope. And then our back thigh, we want it to roll forwards so that this thigh is internally rotating and our hips are traveling towards the front of our mat. If they aren't square on perfectly, no worries. Remember, this is your warrior one. It's just that intention of spiraling the back thigh forward that we're looking for. Pressing down through the outer edge of that back foot, lifting very slightly through that back inner arch and rooting through both feet. From here, we'll rise up, head over our heart over our pelvis, upper body tall, crown of the head shines towards the sky. We'll inhale, reach our arms wide and high. Exhale, softening through our elbows, cactus arms. Nice. And then just find a moment to soften here amongst all of the effort that's involved in this posture and in our practice. So find a smile. Mindful that we aren't gripping or holding, our hands aren't rigid or our feet aren't very, very tightly gripping onto the mat. Find one more breath and then release. Hands come down, either side of the front foot. We'll step our way back into our downward facing dog. Now that transition from our lunge to our down dog is often made to look very, very simple, and there's actually a lot involved in that. So don't worry if it takes you a couple of steps to get there. This will come through practice, perhaps through space in the body that we create and through time. So stick with your breath. Trust where you are today. And as we meet back in our down dog, we'll float our right leg high. Three-legged dog. Keep pressing down through each of your fingers, through both palms evenly. Find this soft bend in the left knee. Back heel down towards the ground. If it doesn't touch, no worries. Find one more breath here. And then bending that right knee, we'll start to hover forwards into our high lunge and then step that right foot up. Frame the front foot, bring that back knee to the ground, untuck the back toes and reach the hands all the way up. Rise, lift out of that front leg and then soften the arms into cactus. And we're going to do the same little flow on this side that we did on the other side. So almost going through a mini checklist in our mind as we arrive in each posture. Front knee over our front ankle, toes spreading, rooting down through that front big toe joint to really get that grounding into the front leg. Right hip crease back, left hip crease forward, grow tall tall in the torso, shoulders soft away from the ears. And take a couple of breaths here. Nice. Let the hands release. Let the left hand plant down. Maybe we take our hand to our brick to lift the ground a little. Inhale, reach right fingertips all the way to the sky, twist open. Exhale, release, tap fingertips down. We'll do that a couple more times. Inhale, reach all the way up. Lower body stays where it is. This twist is happening. This rotation is through our torso. And exhale, release. Nice. One last time. Reach all the way up. And release here. Nice. Hands will swoop forwards, up and all the way back. But keep tracing back. Find a nice big circle. Hands come close towards the ground and then we reach forwards, up and back again. Nice. One more time. Take up as much space as you can. Awesome. Let the hands come either side of the front foot. We'll lift our back knee, toes tuck under, and step that back foot slightly forwards and a little bit wider. We'll start to rise to our warrior one. So now the left toes are about 10 o'clock. We're planting through our front foot with our front knee over our front ankle. Let this back thigh spiral forwards, really rooting down through the outer edge of that back foot. And then let the attention grow up through the torso as we grow tall. Arms rise, elbows soften into cactus. Strong, sturdy warrior one. Nice. And remember, if your warrior one looks slightly different to mine, no worries. Just make this work for you. Find a comfortable space for you to be in. Your legs might be a little wider, they might be a little closer together. We're looking to keep them wide enough for our body so that we're not compressing in the lower back and the sacrum area here. So find one more breath. And then release hands either side of the front foot. Step your way straight back into a downward facing dog. Nice. Take a deep breath in and down dog. And then everybody slow and controlled, soften the knees to the ground, toes together, sit back in your child's pose. And just take a few breaths here. Nice. Awesome. We'll lift all the way up. Nice and slow transition into our downward dog. So bring the knees back to parallel. Toes tuck under, sit the hips back towards the heels. Let the tailbone rise up as we plant through the palms. From down dog, we'll walk the hands back to the feet. Find our forward fold, generous bend in the knees, crown of the head shines down. Inhale to lift up halfway, hands to the tops of the thighs, roll the shoulders away from the ears. Exhale, release down to the ground. Press into the feet this time, arms heavy as we roll all the way up to standing. Reach the arms wide and high when we get there. And then dive all the way back down to the ground. Take up lots of space. Dive down like a bird. Forward fold. Inhale, lift up halfway. Find this long flat back. Don't skip over it. Exhale, release. Nice. Hands walk to the ground. Finding our way to our downward facing dog. We'll float our left leg off the mat behind us. Three-legged dog. Bend that right knee. Heel down towards the ground. Then bend the left knee and we'll step it through up into our lunge. Hands either side of the front foot will come light onto the fingertips. Keep that back heel sending away towards the ground, but very much lifted, so our back leg's super active. We'll just take a moment to look at our feet. And if we're on a very tight line here, like a tightrope, then I invite you to step your feet a little bit wider, so we're on more like two sturdy train track parallel lines. From here, we'll lift our fingertips just off the ground, keeping our front knee over our front ankle. We'll reach our hands forwards and up and then swim them towards the back of the mat, fingertips face away from us, in our airplane lunge. In our airplane lunge, our belly is soft towards our thigh. Heart space stays open, palms down towards the ground. We're just staying lower to the ground first to get a feeling for being in a lunge position with our back knee lifted. So check in with the lower body, really hug the inner thighs in toward one another. And we'll rise, lift the fingertips forwards and up, high lunge. We might need to step that back foot up very slightly if that feels more comfortable for you. Maybe we're still working on some space in this right hip flexor and this is way too much. So if you need to step that back foot up, please do. Just keep the back heel lifted. Find a deep breath in here. And as we exhale, we'll pivot to our warrior two. So bring that back foot to the ground, 2 o'clock position, just like it was in our warrior one. But this time, as we bring our attention to our thighs, they're rolling away from one another. We're finding this external rotation. So our front knee is still over our front ankle, our back leg is very long, but instead, as our hips open towards the right side of our mat, our torso opens up too. Reaching our arms, left hand forward, right hand back, and just being mindful, checking in with how we feel we are in space, this idea of proprioception. So maybe we're actually here, or here, or here, or here. So this is all just about feeling in your own body. We're looking to keep our head over our heart and our heart over our pelvis. Arms level, shoulders soft. And take our gaze to our front hand. We'll enjoy a little warrior sequence that is often explored in a Vinyasa Flow practice. So lifting this front palm up towards the sky, we'll reach it forwards, up and back. Lower body stays where it is. Right hand comes to the right leg as the left hand reaches up and towards the back of our mat in a reverse warrior. Lovely. Take a big breath in. Exhale, come through our warrior two. And then bringing our left forearm to our left thigh and our right fingertips all the way up and then over towards the front of our mat. This is our side angle pose. Being mindful here that we aren't collapsing a lot of our weight into this front leg. So we're keeping a little fire in the belly and the core to keep us lifted so that we're just resting our arm here. We also have the option of bringing our left hand down onto a brick or a block. And maybe if we've been here before, and we have the space, we can bring fingertips to the earth. But again, not crashing down to the ground, keeping this nice and light. And this is super strengthening, just as warrior one is for our lower body. So if we want to find even more of a burn, you can stay here a little longer. But we're going to add a bit of a flow to this. So lifting our way up through our warrior one. Front hand flips, we reach forwards, up and back, reverse warrior. Make sure we're breathing here, come through warrior two, straight to our side angle pose, radiating the heart space up towards the sky. Nice, lifting up through warrior two, reach front hand forwards, up and back, find space, and then all the way back through warrior two, side angle pose. Keep pressing through all 4 sides of both feet. We'll just take one more breath here, and then release. Lift up to warrior two and just straighten through that front leg. Whew, give it a bit of a break. And then making our way back to our airplane lunge. We'll pivot our back heel off the ground. Bring our hips to face towards the front of our mat. Hands reach up and back behind us. Airplane lunge. Nice. Taking our weight over to our left foot. We'll just start to transfer the weight and lift that right foot off the ground. Not going for a super big lift to start off with. We're just checking in with what it feels like to be on one leg. And we're leading up to our warrior three here. But for now, we'll just find one more breath here. Trust the ground is there to catch you. Airplane lunge, step back and bring the hands to the earth. Step the left foot back, come to a plank pose. And we'll bring our knees to the ground into low plank. Remember, pressing away from the earth, shoulder blades spread slightly apart. Hug the elbows in towards us, lower down, all one level with control. Chaturanga practice. Plant through the feet, hands back by the rib cage, rise, baby cobra. Release. Press all the way up and back. Tuck the toes, let the hips rise, downward facing dog. From here, float the right leg off the mat, bend the knee and step it forwards. Nice, hands either side of the front foot in our runner's lunge. Same little flow on this side now, coming light onto our fingertips and then letting them hover off. Mindful we're not on that tight rope, stepping the feet a little wider if we need to, as we reach the arms forwards, up and back, palms face down, airplane lunge. Mindful we aren't collapsing into this front leg, heart open. Find this light in the belly to keep our torso strong and sturdy where we are. Nice, one more breath. And then rise to our high lunge, reach hands up. We'll lift up and soften here. Awesome, remember to step that back foot in very slightly if we need to. Front knee stays over our front ankle, back heel sends away towards the ground. And then transition to warrior two, pivoting that back foot to the ground. Stepping the feet a little wider if we need to. Again, similar to our warrior one, just how we're looking to find some space in our sacrum. Front knee bends over front ankle, back leg long like a ski slope. Thighs roll away from one another, hips open towards the left side, torso open, arms reach. Mindful that we're not reaching forwards or back, just get into the space and feel where you are in your own body. Lovely. Taking our gaze to our front hand, we'll lift the front palm up towards the sky, reach it forwards, up and back, transition, reverse warrior. Let that left hand just soften onto the left leg rather than crash down. And then floating through warrior two, bending the front elbow, we'll bring the forearm to the thigh and reach our left hand up and over. Side angle pose. Keep rooting down through both feet, particularly that outer edge of that back foot. We'll reach up through warrior two, flip the front hand, reach forwards, up and back. Reverse warrior, lower body stays where it is. And then releasing into side angle pose. Nice. Notice where your breath is here. Last time we'll reach up. Reverse warrior. And through warrior two into our side angle pose. Then as we lift up to warrior two, just straighten through that front leg and give it a little pat. Just send a little bit of love and appreciation to your body for all the awesome stuff it allows you to do. We'll then open them up back to our warrior two and pivot our back heel off the ground, making our way to our airplane lunge. Reaching the hands back behind you. And taking the weight over towards our right leg. As we glide our left leg off the earth, we're just keeping it close towards the ground. Just being aware of what it feels like on this side without that comparison mind taking over, that judgment mind. We're just being aware that one side might feel different to the other. And if there's any extra support we can take, then please, please do. Hold on if you need to. Find one more breath here. Trust the ground's there as we lightly step back, airplane lunge. And then plant the palms. We'll step it back, downward facing dog this time, straight away. Awesome. We'll walk our hands back towards our feet. Forward fold, crown of the head down. Inhale, lift up halfway. Exhale, fold. Inhale, reach for the sky. Exhale, release and dive down. A little movement with our breath there, just notice how it feels. Inhale, lift up halfway. Exhale, fold and release. Hands to the earth, walk forwards, straight to a plank pose. Shoulders over our wrists, knees to the ground. Hug the elbows in, lower to the earth with control. Hands back by the ribs, Rise, belly to cobra. And soften. Pressing all the way up and back. Take your time to transition to a downward facing dog. Finding a little bit more of a pace in our Vinyasa Flow practice. And then arriving in down dog, we'll float the left leg off the mat behind us. We'll bend our knee, step it forward, and rise straight to an airplane lunge, stepping our feet a little wider. Reach the arms round and back, keep hinging forwards though. Take the weight straight to the left leg. Right leg lifts off. This time, we'll keep pressing away through our right heel. The legs nice and active as we see if we can lift it a little higher. If we'd like to, we can bring hands to our hips for support, or maybe to our wall. And it helps very much here as we balance to keep our gaze on something on the floor or the wall in front that isn't moving. It also very much helps to stick with our breath, keep this calming inhales and exhales, in through the nose, out through the nose. If our body's in panic stations because we're wobbling all over the place and we can't get our breath, then that makes it very difficult for us to balance as our nervous system is in that more stressed sympathetic state. Find one more breath here. And then we'll step straight to a mountain pose, feet parallel. And just shake it off for a moment. Nice. Now, if we forgot to breathe throughout that whole sequence, no worries, this is the practice, this is what it's all about. It sounds so silly that we have to remind ourselves to breathe, but we're very much moving in autopilot in our lives off our mat. So when we come on our mat, this is a real invitation to breathe with a little more awareness, a little bit more consciousness. So in our mountain pose, we'll reach our hands wide and high. Inhale fully, exhale, dive down to the ground, forward fold. Inhale, lift up halfway, don't rush this flat back, neck long, gaze down. Exhale, fold, bend in the knees, nice. We'll step both feet back straight to a downward dog and come to find our warrior three on the other side. Inhale, reach right leg off the mat. Exhale, bend the knee, step forward. Take your time to get your footing as we reach the arms up and back and round in our airplane lunge. Nice, feel this connection to the ground through the sole of the right foot, this hugging in of the inner thighs toward one another. And then we'll take the weight to the right foot as we lift left leg off. Keep that left heel kicking away. Seeing if we can maybe lift that leg a little higher whilst keeping our hips level here. So we're not looking to open our hips to one side, we're looking to keep them square on-ish towards the ground. And if we wobble, if we fall, don't worry. The ground is there to catch us. Just stick with your breath. Mindful that we aren't collapsing in our upper body here. So just like we do in our cobra on the ground, when we lift up and find extension through our spine, we're looking to keep that same opening here. Nice. Find one more breath. And step the feet to parallel. Mountain pose. And just shake it off, shake it out. Nice. We've been through a lot today. I hope you have enjoyed this practice. We're going to finish off, come into a mountain pose facing forwards. We'll reach our arms up and dive down to the ground. Step straight back, plank pose, and then knees to the earth, child's pose. We'll find 3 breaths in our child's pose. Just coming back to where we are. And then as we nice and slowly rise up, we will come to find a comfortable seat to finish our practice together. And this is where, if you do have some form of lift, I do encourage you to take it. Just helps to add that little extra support for our hips and our spine. And don't worry if you have a lot more lift than I do, a little less. Again, it's just about finding whatever works for you today. So as we sit up nice and tall, we'll just find this really natural relaxing in the shoulders, so we're not super stiff and rigid. Let the hands fall wherever they feel most comfortable, and then closing down the eyes or softening the gaze. Breathe in through the nose, out through the nose. And take a minute to just appreciate all of the awesome, incredible practice that you've just had. Take a moment to reflect upon everything we've just practiced. And how, as you go forward in your practice, you can use this foundational support to grow from. Can we honor and appreciate how all of this time we've just spent building strength, finding length, generally just enjoying some juicy movement in our body, and appreciating all of the benefits that this has had for our mind and our body today. Either keep the hands where they are or float the palms together at the heart. I thank you so much for your time and your energy today. From my heart to yours, namaste. Thank you everyone for joining me for this beginner's practice today. Please let me know if you have any questions about anything we practiced, and if you would like to see any more postures in this little beginner's Vinyasa Flow series. I would absolutely love to hear from you. And if you haven't already, I would hugely appreciate if you press subscribe, press the like button. It means so much to me and means that I can still keep providing free YouTube videos for yoga practice. So wishing you a lovely rest of your day. Thank you.